we've got a college football playoff system in place since 2014 where the polls don't matter. Now it's up to the selection committee to tell us who are the 25 best teams in America and who are those final four and who's just on the fringe, who's on the edge, waiting to jump in. So our first round goes like this. Georgia at 1, Alabama 2, Notre Dame at number 3, and of course Clemson is number 4 with Oklahoma and Ohio State just waiting outside the top 4. So what was, Stephen, your initial reaction to the rankings? Is there anything they missed on in your opinion, and maybe something that they got right that maybe you didn't expect, but you really are buying into a particular mindset?
Well, right now, I was not at all disappointed or displeased or aggravated with what the committee did. I mean, they did exactly how I would expect them to do. You look at Georgia, an impressive win over Notre Dame. Notre Dame continues to win, which is why they're number 3 in the country, number 3 in the college football playoff right now. When you look at Alabama, if Florida State would have kept winning, if it would have pulled itself up by the bootstraps and kept winning following the loss to Bama, maybe we could possibly talk about Alabama being at number 1. However, did not happen. You know, Florida State losing the game, losing DeAndre Francois, which changes the whole complexity of the Seminoles. And as good as the young freshman kid Blackman is, he's not DeAndre Francois. Of course, Jimbo Fisher built this offense. He built a lot of the hopes on the back of DeAndre Francois. That does not happen. And then after the loss to Alabama, Florida State continuing to tumble, Alabama beating the teams it's supposed to beat. But because of the fact that the Southeastern Conference maybe not as strong as it once was as a whole, this conference is really dynamic when LSU is good, when Ole Miss is good, when Arkansas is competitive, when Texas A&M is good, when Auburn's good. When the conference as a whole is good, from the coaching to the play on the field, that's when you really see the full SEC flex its muscle. But when the conference is not where it needs to be at, whether it's coaching, whether it's play on the field, now you look at, okay, who really has Alabama beaten to the point where we can look at that and go, hey, that was special. That was marquee. That was a big-time win. You know, maybe Texas A&M, maybe not, because A&M's been a roller coaster back and forth. You really don't know which A&M is going to come to the table. When you go to number 3, Notre Dame, as I mentioned, lost to Georgia, pulled itself up by the bootstraps, continues to win. Brandon Wimbush, not the best passer of the football, but he gets the job done. Notre Dame, a very solid offensive line. They can run the football. Defensively, they create turnovers. They beat a very good USC team. Can they continue to churn out wins as it heads down the remainder of the stretch of its season? We'll have to see. But Notre Dame fits very well at 3. Number 4 with Clemson, I felt like the committee took very much so into account Kelly Bryant not fully healthy when it took on Syracuse. Now, honestly, granted, could Clemson beat up Syracuse with a second-string quarterback, its backup quarterback? More than likely, yes, but they played Kelly Bryant. You can't change that now, and the committee just feels like, okay, because of the fact he was not 100%, came back the next week a lot better, played a lot better, so this is how we're going to grade that. Not my taste of how I would have done it as far as Clemson is concerned, but I'm not disappointed with how the committee went about the process.
Talking Tide with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. He joins us each and every Wednesday night to talk Alabama football, with the Tide taking on the LSU Tigers in the SEC Western Division matchup coming up this Saturday. So here's my take on the college football playoff selections in week 1. Georgia distinguishes itself over Alabama in my eyes because of the schedule and because of the win in particular at Notre Dame, but also the win over Mississippi State in resounding fashion. So you have your eyeball test category that some people slot into, and then you've got your resume people. I tend to be more the resume track record. What were the results on the field? What was the performance on the field? So what was the score, the level of dominance? Who did you play? If you did lose, did you lose to a quality team? Were you competitive in the game, or were you not competitive? I factor in all those things. The eyeball test is the eyeball test. That doesn't relate to a scoreboard. So for Georgia and Alabama, to me, watching the teams, Alabama appears to be a better team than Georgia. And most people would agree with that, watching the teams and the level of dominance. But Georgia's been pretty darn dominant as well against the SEC and like opponents to Alabama. Alabama's really beat up on the worst of the SEC when you look at Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Ole Miss, on down the line. Texas A&M would be the best team that they've played to date. So I like Georgia over Alabama. I'm all in when it comes to the Bulldogs at 1 and the Tide at 2. Notre Dame, I think, has the most impressive schedule to date with wins over North Carolina State, USC, Michigan State, the 1-point loss to Georgia, who might be the best team in the country or one of the very best teams in the country. So I love Notre Dame's resume. They may have the toughest road the remaining way with Miami and Stanford in particular, although they've navigated, like we say, North Carolina State and USC in the last 2 weeks. So Notre Dame has made it through most of its very difficult schedule. Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, you can go a number of different routes here. Ohio State obviously is the disadvantage of losing the head-to-head to Oklahoma. I'm a big proponent to head-to-head. We have 2 7-1 football teams. So when we talk Sooners and Buckeyes, Oklahoma, for as much as people want to say, hey, it's 5 weeks later and Ohio State would beat Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns. I'm not discounting that, but that's all conjecture. I believe myself that Ohio State's a better team than Oklahoma, but they played in Columbus. Oklahoma won it by 2 scores. It was not competitive, seriously, in the second half. So I have no issue with that. The Clemson factor is extremely interesting with the quarterback, with Kelly Bryant in play, and with the loss being what it was, and some of the wins earlier in the season not quite as impressive as they were. Auburn's lost a second game. That's Clemson's best win, where Ohio State's best win is now Penn State. So Ohio State's best win is much better than Clemson's, and their loss is much better than Clemson's loss. But not a whole lot of depth in Ohio State's schedule, but that's coming with Michigan State and with Michigan in particular, and a date at Iowa this Saturday night. And so there's your top 6. I don't have a huge issue with it. I think it generally is gonna filter through, but we've got some challenges that could be coming. Notre Dame wins out, Georgia and Alabama win out. There's a close SEC championship game. It looks like we're going to be taking up 3 spots and leaving out 3 conferences. That could be a huge, huge issue.